Great. Thank you so much, Ashley. My name is Kayla, and I am one of the Farmer Services Coordinators at Georgia Organics, along with Porter, and who is also on the call. And together with Michael Wall, we are looking to foster farmer prosperity in the state of Georgia through a myriad of ways, from healthcare access to organic certification support, to helping folks find networks, to sell their products, as well as an accelerator program that invests in 10 farmers per year through intensive case management and consulting support. So that's just a little bit of what we do. And if you're interested in learning more, you can definitely connect on our website or send an email. Whether you're in Georgia or outside of Georgia, we'd love to chat and see how we can support you. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Mark. I think you're muted, Mark.
Okay, here we go. Thank you very much. And just when you mentioned technical difficulties, Ashley, I lost the connection. So we have a rainstorm coming in and my satellite connection may get a little screwy. So hang in there. I'll be back if you lose me. I'm gonna jump right in. Let's see. We need to. I need to share my screen and not your screen. Be right with me.
You want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Okay, there we go. Got it.
Sure. Yeah, my introduction will be here in the first few frames anyway. So can you see my slideshow here?
Yes.
Are we good? Can you see?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Yes, there's a little bit, there's just a few second sound delay. So yes, my name's Mark Cain, and my partner Mike Crane and I are in Northwest Arkansas, up in the Ozark Mountains, up in the northwest corner. And I do have some nice connections there in Georgia. My only brother lives there in Marietta, north of Atlanta. So I come back and forth to Atlanta at least once a year, but unfortunately had to skip the Thanksgiving holiday because of the pandemic situation. But Georgia Organics was nice enough to invite me last year to do a presentation on what I call deep sustainability. And it was pretty well received in a few different locations. And it turns out these issues are very important to a lot of farmers. So I'm going to jump in here and let you know that I do believe this is true, that happiness is available right here and now. It's mostly that we're unavailable for it. And how we get there, it can be a very big challenge. This is our place up at Dripping Springs Garden. We cultivate about 3.5 acres of mixed crops, both cut flowers and vegetables for the farmers market, about an hour away in Fayetteville. We have about 100 member CSA, and we supply a Whole Food store and a farm-to-table restaurant, and also our Fayetteville Farmers Market is really the reason that we moved here back in 1984. So this will be our 37th year in production. We were only 30 years old when we moved here, and that's been a long time ago now. We didn't have running water for 10 years and didn't have any new buildings or a tractor for 20. So we were definitely back to the landers. And this is what the place looks like mostly now. We have about 4 caterpillars and another big greenhouse added to that picture, but we have pretty much maxed out our available arable land. We live right on this beautiful creek that's here at the bottom of the picture that we irrigate from. And we're surrounded by forest. So we're very rural. I'm coming to you via satellite, and our cell phones don't work very well down here. For those of you who are farming, and I'm assuming most of you are involved in farming in some way, these type of pictures are the types that we love to post on Instagram or Facebook. We always go out and take pictures of our places at when they look the best and when we're feeling good and when we want to share those kind of images of what our lives are like. This is Mike. And those images generally, I think are pretty irresistible to the public. So many people are living in urban areas now that don't have access to the type of beauty that we do and the type of lifestyles that we have. So it's incredible what type of following you can get. It shows that we're connected with this beautiful earth that we all live on, and that is such a lack in a lot of urban living situations that, of course, it makes it super interesting for the public. As you come along in your farming careers, of course, there are a lot of things to do. There are a lot of responsibilities. We have restaurant orders to fill. We have farmers markets to supply. There are greenhouses full of transplants waiting to go out, waiting. And because a lot of us have gotten busy with hoop houses and caterpillar tunnels, the work doesn't just end when we have the killing frost and we clean up. We actually continue to market most of the year. That's one of the disadvantages of hoop houses, is that you can be busy all year instead of just during the main growing season. So we've made ourselves busier, but also more productive and more financially stable because of season extension structures too. Of course, we have ongoing challenges with how we manage all of our workers, all the people that are required to do all this work. And there are things that are just biological realities that we have to deal with. We've got to stay on top of all the harvesting and the planting and the planning. So there's so many moving parts to a farm. All these pictures were taken here on the farm of our crew and various activities that we do here. When we take pictures like this at our farmers market, our customers probably have no idea, but we know how many hours it took to pick those cherry tomatoes and those cucumbers, and how maybe each one of those buckets of zinnias took a half an hour. That entire assembly of products probably took 5 people more than a full day to gather all those things together. We know how much work is actually behind these beautiful images that we like to portray ourselves with. These are pictures of our market stand in Fayetteville. And in the CSA situation, when you have a CSA, even though it's a fantastic marketing tool and a wonderful relationship with the public and a way to educate the public about farmer issues and what's local and in season, because they pay upfront, it really puts you on notice that the crops have to come in. You have a big responsibility to a lot of people. And last year, our CSA doubled in size. We were at around 55, and we went to about 100 people in our CSA because of the pandemic. Farmers market days we cut back on. And so this puts a tremendous amount of pressure on farmers to be responsible for all these people that want their products. And then, of course, a lot of people would love to come out to the farm and check it out. And then the farmer says, oh my God, now I have to go do a bunch of mowing and make sure everything looks great so that people feel like we're together here. And you know how much cleanup that takes. Everybody who's hosted a farm tour for a Georgia Organics conference, I'm sure, knows exactly how much work that is to try to prepare for a big group of people coming out to your farm. It can be super stressful, even though it's enjoyable once it's happening. This is a picture I took of the Women's March. It must have been 4 years ago in Washington after the presidential inauguration. And it was my favorite protest sign because we have all these beautiful images of what our farming life is like. And on the backside, sometimes there's a slightly different story. For instance, this is the creek that we live on. And this is the reason we bought this 40-acre piece of property back in 1984, because we came down to this creek and we saw the crystal clear water in this beautiful landscape, and we just absolutely fell in love. We fell in love with this piece of land and the potential that it possessed for us to live here in harmony with it. And a long time ago, we had a hammock hanging down here, and we used to go down there a lot more often. So what happened, a friend of mine and I were down at the creek, and he said, "This is so beautiful down here. Do you get a chance to enjoy it?" And it really took me back, because we hadn't been lying in the hammock very much and just enjoying the creek. And that is because our lives over the last 36 years have become more and more complicated and busier because of the responsibilities that we've taken on. So this is a wake-up call, was a wake-up call for me. We're going along and we're going along, and we've got 2 more hoop houses, and we have 10 more CSA customers, and then we have more accounts. And then all of a sudden, something's a little askew. Things can start to get out of balance. We don't quite know how to handle everything that we've taken on. And in the meantime, we've gotten a lot older. We're 37 years older than when we started our farm, and people our age are passing away. And this is another big wake-up call. It's like, what are we enjoying what we're doing? And how do we tweak this scene, even though we immensely enjoy the farm work? How can we deal with the fact that there may be aspects of our lives that are not getting addressed, that we don't have that much time for? It's like, if you want to do certain things, you need to do them now, because there's not going to be time later. So this is a huge issue with folks our age, but the thing is, I think younger people can very well understand this. So our perspective on our farm has shifted. For so many years, we were working on building up the farm and paying off the land and getting customers and having a presence in the market. And now our perspective is starting to shift toward, how do we make this all work and give room for all the other aspects of life that we don't want to die wishing we had experienced. So I don't mean to sound depressing, but it is true for all of us in farming that figure out ways to make our lives livable, because people are also looking to us for examples of what does having a life like this mean. We have more and more young people that are coming to us wanting to work with us every year, that are considering farming as a way to have an independent life. And they want out, they want outside, they want independence. The hiring possibilities aren't particularly that interesting to them. And so every year we have, even this year, we have people coming in who have, some who have farm experience and some who have none, but all who are interested in potentially having their own small farms. And we need to acknowledge a few facts about what our life is like, some hard facts about our lives that are on the backside of those beautiful pictures of harvests. One of it is it's a ton of work that it's very hard to get away from. And there doesn't ever seem to be a complete end to any of the jobs. The jobs just keep appearing all the time. You know, the growing season is one big cycle, and it just repeats over and over and over. The earth keeps going around the sun, and there are always things you have to think about months and months in advance. And the projects are never really done. They can be stable for a little while, and then they're going to get unstable again. So be sure to take your pictures when they're stable. We're out here in isolation, and this is often the case with most of our farm friends around here, that we are with our own little social group. Either it's our family or the people that come and work for us every day. We live in rural areas, and our farming peers are very scattered. It's not that easy for us to talk to other people who are in the same jobs that we are, that understand our problems. So the other thing is that no matter how successful you are, farming is not usually the most lucrative choice that you can make. So many young people like you all are super smart and have awesome educations and are just social activists and have so much on the ball, could be doing so many things that are more lucrative than actual production. But that is a fact that with a lot of work, you're still going to have a fairly modest income for the most part. Also, we've been, for the past 35 years, we've been plowing through uncharted waters. At the time that we started our farm back in 1984, the extension agents told us that growing organically was not possible. And we didn't know to what extent supporting ourselves through market gardening was possible, but we were going to do it. We were going to find out. In the meantime, going to Saturday market every Saturday and then going to market 3 times a week. When was the last time we enjoyed a concert on a Friday night? Yeah. So what happens to social life? This is a challenge. So there are a few things that start to stand out as super important, that are beyond just the crops and beyond our CSA. They're intertwined, but they are things that we need to take a look at. One is just our peace of mind, our general sense of well-being in both in our bodies and in our minds. Are we at ease, or are we always stressed out? Can we develop health and ease in our bodies over the long run? Our family and our communities are both super important. I don't know about some of the other farmers online right now, but during the summertime, our friends who are here in the neighborhood have learned that it's not a good idea to drop by at any time of day and expect to sit down with Mike or I and just shoot the breeze, because we are pretty pressed to get the work done. And so if we're not careful, our community can suffer because of our lack of participation in it. And so that's something we have to pay attention to. Both our families and our community, they're important to us. They're right here around us, and yet we can be isolated from them by our work. If we don't have a deep sense of direction and purpose about why we're farming and who we're serving, it can all just evolve into dollars per square foot. Now, of course, those things are important. We have to understand those things. However, when we have a clear direction and purpose, and the reason we're very clear about why we continue to stay in this work despite the difficulties, then there is more ease and there's less stress. In terms of this creative fulfillment, many of us came into farming with many other interests and possibilities in our lives, and then sometimes those get crowded out and we don't have time to pursue either musically or study or travel or these type of things that actually make us whole people, that make us happy to be alive. And we need to pay attention to what that is, that creative fulfillment. And then just our perspective on our place in all of this, our place in this moment in history, in this place in this moment in our country, and in farming and in our communities. So there's another syndrome that goes along with this, and maybe you guys have noticed. So, people my age, their backs are going out. They may have may have paid off their farm, and they've got a nice house to live in, and they've got markets, and and yet if their body goes out, they hurt their shoulder, they hurt their back because they're not taking care of themselves, they're not eating right, or they're shouldering the responsibility of being a culture hero. And I think you guys must know what I'm talking about when I say that when we feel like our culture is looking at us to be these types of heroes, it can put an added pressure on us, not just the real pressure of getting the tomatoes harvested, but we have these real senses of failures and success about being culturally someone to look up to. So maybe we need to take a look at what our goals are. And if we decide that we want to see through somehow to being happy, and happy doesn't mean necessarily unstressed or not having a lot of work to do. We can also be happy in fulfilling our deepest aspirations in farming. But a lot of us have challenging work habits and maybe unclear values, and sometimes we put priorities on things that we need to re-examine. This is a place in France that I went to visit. I'll tell you just a quick story. A few years ago, we had a really difficult summer here, and part of the difficulty was the friction that was happening between a young man that was working here with us and myself. He was super, super, super motivated, and he had some other farm experience, and he basically had this attitude that he just wanted to do everything as fast as possible. And the people that couldn't keep up with him basically sucked, and he was creating this type of tension around everything that we did. And I think his heart was in the right place. It's just that his style of working was to try to kill everything, was try to kill the work, try to get it out, to do it just quite aggressively. And at the end of that summer, I was so discouraged by this experience that I decided that either I was going to retire or try to find some way to fix this. And I made this visit to Plum Village, which is a meditation community in southern France that was started by Thich Nhat Hanh, a Buddhist meditation teacher. And they have a place called Happy Farm, where they're doing production to supply the monastery there. And I just wanted to find out how they were integrating mindfulness techniques into the farm life on a daily basis. So that's why this sign's in here. So it's possible that we need to set a few boundaries around what's important to us so that the farm doesn't eat all of it. And we need to think about ourselves as humans that can make mistakes, that get tired, that need repair, just like our machines do. And that to try to keep 100% every single day often isn't very wise. That it's maybe possible for a short time, and then we're burnt out. And it's possible we need to learn some new skills in prioritizing, in stress reduction, in values assessment. And that is all just to find some kind of balance. It's not balanced to decide that you want to play the guitar more while you're farming, if then everything on the farming end is getting slighted. Somehow we have to find balance between all the things that require our attention. And this is the tricky part, because we want everything. We want this scene right here at the farmer's market. We want all those beans and those potatoes there and all those flowers. We want lots of customers, and we want creative fulfillment, and we want free time. And so we are super spoiled. I mean, we want everything, right? I mean, me too. And that's where we get stuck, because it can be super stressful trying to have everything. Even trying to be relaxed. Trying to be relaxed can be stressful. So what I'm going to do here, these problems kind of present themselves in both external and internal. External ways to cope with a busy farming life that can create more order and more serenity. And then later on, I'll focus more on the internal things. but this is just, this is not a formula for everyone. This is basically a harvest basket of goodies that I've picked up over the years that have helped our farm. And I'm just going to share them with you because your own harvest basket of goodies is going to come from your own wisdom of working on your farms over decades. Because all of us are subject to a lot of the same stresses that are on us. So I'm just sharing some of these things with you that have made some differences on our farm and have been very helpful for us in coping with farming as a life. Years ago, as we started to have more interns, and especially when we started participating with the Multinational Exchange for Sustainable Agriculture, which is an international program out of Berkeley that brings in students from South America and Asia and India to work on sustainable farms. We became a host farm, and we have to sign letters of agreement that outline everything, the work schedule, what's going to be learned, blah, blah, blah. So we started tightening up our workday so that it was very rhythmic and routine. And we found that it was super helpful that when everybody knows exactly when we're starting and when we're going to eat and when is the free time and when is the break, there's more happiness in general. And we find that young people and ourselves respond to rhythmic stability. And so this doesn't mean that there's no place for spontaneity or creativity within our days. There's quite a bit, but because we have work and rest, people respond to them. Our entire crew can respond to them as a group, and we've tried to create something that actually makes sense over time. Now, a lot of times we'll have to work later because something has to be done before it rains, or we have to shorten our break because something happens, I've got to go pick up a delivery. But in the summertime, we adopted a Mediterranean schedule for the middle of the summer where we have a long break in the middle of the day to avoid work when it's super hot, and we work later in the day. And one reason that we can do that is because everybody lives here on the farm. We have housing here on the farm for the students that work for us during the summer. So that makes it a lot easier. But secretly, I can tell you that this Mediterranean got started because I was determined to put my yoga period into my work schedule. Otherwise, it was going to be lost. And some other friends on farms in North Carolina are starting to adopt a paid yoga time on their farms because they find out how important it is to keep people healthy. So this is just an idea that having realistic work schedules where you have very clear rest periods and work periods, and not something that's pie in the sky, but something that really works for you, that's super important. The other thing is that has meant a tremendous amount to us in terms of improving our skill level on our farms. And so a tremendous amount of stress is created by always having to do things that we don't know how to do. We don't know what the best innovations are in what kind of tools we can buy, or where the new open emerging markets are, or maybe what's the best way to grow carrots. But by communicating with other farmers and finding ways to transfer that information, it makes us the best farmers that we can be at that time by staying open to continuous improvement and not just getting caught in our day-to-day work so that we can never go out and learn about what's happening on other farms. We make a point of going out in the summertime at least a few times with our interns to go visit other farmers that we want to see how they're doing things, because it's just so good for perspective. And you pick one good idea can transform your farm. And basically our farm is a patchwork of many good ideas that have been gathered from all over the place. One thing that's super important to me is having a plan, not just a crop plan, but a daily plan, a weekly plan, a seasonal plan, a marketing plan. And because when reality, the map is going to be is going to focus our attention to have the best guess about what we project needs to happen or can happen. And that means we have to know what we're trying to accomplish. And what's super important is we pull this stuff out of our heads and put it on paper so that we can quit worrying about it. If we can catch those thoughts, those random thoughts that are constantly going on in our minds about how to manage our place, how to do this, how to do that, we need to put it down on paper so that we can focus on it and project our best effort there. Not to diminish the importance of spontaneity. For instance, this last spring when the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden our CSA doubled in size and our market was shut down, we had to pivot on a lot of different marketing efforts and cropping and all this. Music works where a bunch of musicians sit down who are good improvisers and they have a chart. Well, the chart is a map. The chart is a map about the basic framework of the music. And from that basic framework, we are going to improvise, keep us in rhythm and in the right key and everything. So we need both. We need our ability to be spontaneous, and we also need the ability to sit down and focus and create plans for ourselves. One of the ways I do it is this thing on the right is just a little pocket notebook I try to keep in my pocket almost every work day with a pen. It just goes around with me because so many random thoughts will come and go in a day about what needs to happen or what pieces need to be bought. And if you can just get them out of your head and onto a piece of paper, you've captured them, and they won't be just swirling around, creating stress, sort of just an unnamed general stress level for you. And then in the morning, we'll have, I'll take a little bit of time in the morning or in the evening ahead of time to scope out what has to happen. A lot of times it's a good idea just to brainstorm and don't censor anything, just get it down, and then you can go back and prioritize it. Annual planning maps, of course, horticulture. It's the best roadmap you can create is what you want. It takes time, but it's going to tremendously relieve stress about what's coming. One thing I found out, of course, that super important is that on a given day, you're not going to accomplish most of the things on your list. And usually few things are going to get dropped. If you can drop things off of your list that don't need to be done, many times you can create a much less stressful situation for yourself. This came about, just for instance, I was at market, I think it was last year, year before last, our people that we give flowers to support a local theater had offered me some tickets to the theater at 2:00 in the afternoon. And we were at market at 1:00 trying to get everything in the truck so that I could go to see this play that they had given me tickets to. And I found myself getting super irritable that it wasn't going any faster. Of course, I'm just irritable because it can't happen fast enough and it's obvious I'm not going to get there. Well, as soon as I dropped the idea that I needed to go to that play that afternoon, everything became easy. It was really obvious that many times I overschedule and that I need to be able to let go of some things in order for everything else to be a lot less stressful. One of those things to do to drop things off your list is to train your people well, delegate, the responsibilities to them, check in with them to make sure it's being done okay, trust them to do it well, and then go do something else. So this is not always easy, but it requires good training. One thing that we've learned from our Thai interns is there's a cultural attitude in Thailand, exemplified by the expression "mai pin rai," and it means no problem, no problem. We've had several Thai students here, and one student's constant reply to everything that we asked of him was, "No problem, no problem." And it was, sometimes there are some people that, they'll see the work and they'll just get stressed about how they can do it as fast as possible and not making any mistakes. But this person's attitude was always, no problem. It's a beautiful attitude to go into your work with. Okay, I'm going to get rid of a few things so I can see you better here. Poor Ryan, he had had a long, hard day, and he decided he was going to have to lie down, even if it was in the tractor bucket. And the physicality of farming is something with long distance endurance race. From beginning of the season until the end, but most long distance runners have learned how to pace themselves. They don't use all their energy in the first mile. They catch their stride, their wind, and they perform at a high level because they have trained. And so, and they've rested and they've eaten well. And we can't abuse ourselves every day and expect to last. One way to last to the work without creating stress while we're working. So a long time ago, Fukuoka, who wrote One Star Revolution, was visiting a community I was in California, and he decided he was going to show us about the Tai Chi of sickling rice harvest. And he bent down on one knee and he showed us how just being on one knee would allow us to work all day long without getting tired. Can you imagine all these Japanese farmers doing these rice harvests by hand all day long for days as a group? And, they had to figure out how to do that. So we need to ask ourselves in every single job, whether it's putting in tomato stakes or if it's laying plastic or if it is weeding or if it's transplanting, all these things that require physical moves and many repeated motions. How can we do it and not resist it? Do we need better clothing? Do we need lighter tools? Do we need to pause more often? Do we need to go slower? Maybe we need to sit on our butt. We need to be smart about these things and not attack the work like it's some animal that we're trying to kill. It's the Tai Chi. It's a what do you call it? I think of the word wabi-sabi in Japanese. It's the Tai Chi of working. Here's some, try to get this across to our interns who are coming into work. I wrote this explanation of what I about working slowly necessarily. It's about an attitude of ease. So cultivating an attitude of ease towards work helps tremendously lift the burden and help us enjoy it all as it happens. So if we become too stressed, the weeds and insects become enemies, the vegetables are a chore, our customers are a big pain. And we've had interns in here before for whom it's sustainable. If you ask the old farmer, you'll find out that the work just never ends. There is no end to it. It's always going to be there. So we need to find a way to pace ourselves, and we find a way to find peace in is one of the best teachers of how to work well. We've cut millions of flowers, and we have a certain way that we hold the scissors. We have a pace that's comfortable, but it's efficient, and a zone that our mind self without undue effort. But this is the fruit of experience. It comes, it just takes practice. But if we have that type of intention with our work, we can release a tremendous amount of stress around it. There's always going to be work. Of course, we always want it to happen faster, but sometimes what we need to do is relax into it, because it's going to still be there whether we're stressed or relaxed. When I did a podcast interview with Chris Blanchard years ago, before Chris passed away, for Farmer podcast, he labeled our interview "Changing Your Own Oil," because he was kind of fascinated in the way that we were practicing yoga as a group, and trying to integrate meditation and these cyclical downtimes into our work so that we could pace ourselves and enjoy it. So this is just a picture of me and some of the interns at a weekday lunch break doing some yoga together. This is a wonderful time to spend with each other. Most people, their first thought is, I don't have time. I can't find the time to do something like this. And I want you just to ask yourself, how much time did you spend on social media today? I was asked that recently about how much screen viewing I do every day by the eye doctor when I went to have cataract surgery this summer. And I'm sure that I didn't really want to look at that very closely. How much screen time did I actually have? And I've been looking at that a lot lately in terms of managing my attention away from things that are not beneficial and for things that are. Yoga isn't the only way to stay in shape and be flexible and relax. There's lots of other ways. Anybody that's ever done any running or swimming or bicycling, everyone that's done that kind of thing knows what kind of perks come with it. You know, you get a great endorphin rush, you're more relaxed. Skills have to be practiced regularly, just like playing the piano. You would never expect to be a good piano player by just trying it out for 15 minutes and deciding you weren't any good. Everybody knows that's not the way you become a piano. You actually take things in small bites and enjoy the bites that you have and with the time that you have, and then come back to it again the next day, and then come back to it again the next day. So making the time for practice is super important for these things that may not be a part of your day, that you want them to be part of your day, because for the long term, you need them. So a lot of times during the day, you know, one of the upshots of being a meditator is that you tend to watch your mind a lot. So my challenge is watching my mind while I'm doing farm work. And often it'll be like, this is going too slow. We're not going to finish the time. Gee, this customer I can't stand this customer. I have to get away from that person. Why isn't that intern working any faster? These are all mindset states that I'm sure all of you can relate to. It's brain noise. They are tape loops that we get into that have some basis in reality, but then they enter the boombox of our mind and become these tape loops that are not helping us. They're like wearing heavy shoes instead of light, comfortable shoes. And so how do we get to a place where we can drop some of this incessant noise that we carry around with us? And the first step is just noticing that it's there. The first step is just noticing that it's there. How are we doing on time, Ashley?
Mark, you got about
Can
10,
you hear me?
15 more minutes. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, I think we're good.
Okay.
Here's something else. Okay, here's something else that can cause a lot of stress is competition. And so you go to the farmer's market, you pull up, you unload all of your stuff. Farmers are there delivering stuff that you wish you had sold to that restaurant. And so there are these feelings that come up that are difficult for us. I will acknowledge that there are times when it's hard for me to walk around the farmer's market on a busy day because I just want to not have to experience all the emotions that go along with seeing so many duplicate products of all the stuff that we need to move that day. So maybe you can identify with that. One way that I have found to deal with that, besides noticing that those thoughts are there, is that we have made it a point to go out and visit our area farmers, some of whom are just direct competition to us. And luckily we can use the excuse of teaching our interns about what else is going on in the area, farming wise. But the more we get to know these people, the more understanding and sympathy we have, and those feelings of competition drop by the wayside because we see them as humans and not just as objects to be gotten out of the way. Our customers are the same. When you get to know your customers, side of the product that you are working so hard to grow, that face can appear to you in the field when you're tired, when you're tired and you want to quit and not plan. You can take your mind to the fact that the people on the other side of that are super happy and are super proud of you and are so dependent on you to be their connection to wholesome food. This is like a superpower for producers to be in touch with their buyers. Our workers are very important to keep happy. As long as we all have good communication, clear communication about what needs to be done, clear communication back and forth in terms of feedback, making sure that our workers are comfortable, have the right tools, have the right communication, all of that affects my happiness, because otherwise I'm going to worry about them and they're going to worry about each other. They're going to worry about the job they're doing. So this, like they say, happiness is not an individual matter. Happiness is something that eating is a great source of pleasure. As farmers, we should take special care to enjoy some meals together with our family, with our crew if possible. This is where it all comes home, and we need to appreciate it as a ritual. Throughout the day and all the different tasks, if we cannot be in a frame of mind that is in the present, our lives will be nothing but a continual checking off of agenda lists, which never ends. So you see how big that bed of Sweet Williams is? It's 250 feet long. There are thousands of flowers there that have to be cut. And see how happy those two people are? Because they're enjoying harvesting the flowers. As owners of farms, this becomes more challenging for us because we have deadlines to meet, we have crops that have to go out, and there are a lot of moving parts, but we have to be able to participate in that joy. Otherwise, we will be wrecks. So one of the practices that I have when I'm out working, and I can be thinking about, oh, I wish we could just get this done. Or I can repeat to myself, I'm here sifting rocks out of this bed. That's what's happening right now. And lean into that work without resisting it. This to me, when I started thinking about leaning into my tension rather than trying to run away from it, it made time slow down and it made my time more enjoyable. Because this is it. This is farming, you know? Farming is those pretty pictures that we have of all those harvests and farmers markets and riding the horse and, you know, riding a tractor. It's all that stuff that we put on Instagram. But this is it as far as there being a mountain of work that's never done. And we need to figure out how to come to terms with that by learning how to enjoy what's happening now. One way to do this is to practice stopping and immediate source of happiness at any time of the day. This is not me, but we have 3 border collies and they are awesome, and they are unplugged from the work, and they will stop me with their Frisbee in their mouths any time of the day. And they're just super great. So hug a dog. Meditation, just for a few minutes. Meditation does not need to be mysterious or complicated. All it is sitting down. You can call it whatever you want to. Sitting down and stopping. Sitting down and stopping and bringing our attention to sensation. So it can be the pressure on your bottom. It can be your feet on the floor. It can be a tingling in your hands. It can be the sounds around you. All stop our physical activity and just pay attention. And because what we'll see is that our mind is normally just running on and on and on. And by taking our awareness away from that running game and bringing it into our bodies, our breathing, our sensations, that is what helps take the hot air out of the balloon. So that's why we use those techniques. And by becoming familiar with how this works, we start to understand that we're being driven by our mental activity, and that our mental activity is changing that insight into how our minds work. Then we can change the way we respond to what's happening to us, because often we can't control what's happening to us, but we can change the way we respond to it. We don't have to respond out of habit. And it, or the accordion, just sitting down does not mean you're all of a sudden going to be nice and calm, but it does mean that you're going to experience your mind. And this is an important skill. Just a few minutes about creating sacred time. Important that they are right up there with all of our farm work about putting food on the table and shelter over our heads, that we need to think about, that are super important, that we need to make time for. And this requires some reflection. And so, you know, you hear a lot about time management. I'd rather call it attention management, because our attention is our most valuable resource. And where do you want to spend that capital of your attention? If you're sitting, and I know exactly how this works, if you're sitting what they call doom scrolling on your iPad for an hour, all of a sudden an hour has gone by, and an hour and a half has gone by. And do you feel any better? There are that we can use those times of our day that we're actually wasting because we're tired or because we're just procrastinating. A lot of times we're tired and we're wanting to put off facing our day, but there are more creative ways to deal with that. And so our attention is a precious resource, and we need to use it wisely. We need to know what really makes us feel good. whether it's picking up the guitar or playing with your pets or hanging out with your children or taking a walk or a 2-week vacation in the middle of the summer. Most of these things can be planned around and pushed into your schedule. But we need to know what they are. What are the things that are super refreshing for us? For me, it's playing music. Here I'm playing the flute with my friend that plays clarinet, because farming is like a big hog that's going to gobble up all your time. And maybe there's some activities of your life that you need to make a fence around so that they can't get in there and gobble it up, because you have a very multi-dimensional person there that needs care. And we need to respect that. A lot of times I tell people I think they need to treat their farms as their temples. We have neighbors here in the neighborhood that are putting in home gardens, and I'm appalled by the way some people keep their gardens, because they don't understand the importance of having beauty and order in their garden, because it's kind of a sacred place, and the type of aesthetic you create there, the type of feelings you can have there are magical. And we need to understand that. We need to keep stray bits of equipment and plastic and all these things picked up, and so that we have a beautiful workplace. And I do believe this. We have align with nature in a professional way, and if all we can offer those young folks coming along, is a stressed out workplace that's not attractive, they're not going to stay with it. So this is to me, this is the work of now and the future of the sustainable agriculture movement, is that along with all of the square footage, how many dollars can we get from a half an acre, and how can we lean everything down, and how can we forge relationships directly with consumers and all that, and how do we stop contributing to climate change? We have to deal with this fact right here, that when we're happy, we will be able to change the world, because more people are going to be drinking that happiness with us, all of our customers and all of the people coming behind us. So I think this is the work of now and the future. Okay, where are we at?
Mark, we've got a couple more minutes if you want to.
Ashley?
If you want to share, your last little bit of resources here, and then we can take a break from sharing your screen and we could have a discussion.
Okay. In this, I assume you guys are going to have access to this presentation. So that's the reason I have so many notes on the slides themselves, so you can come back and use this as a resource for yourself if you want to. I kind of want to go straight to this. So there's a bunch of meditation apps happening, and some friends, actually a former yoga student of mine, sent me a link to this 10% Happier app a couple months ago, and I started checking it out. I'd been to meditation retreats for years and was already meditating, but meditation teachers available on that. And there are special sessions on forming healthy habits, in addition to basic training in meditation and little bite stations that are only 10 minutes long, that a lot of people can handle in their busy schedules. And so one of the most interesting things I read on reducing stress, and because attention to this conversation that was happening with a meditation teacher about how can we deal with a lot of that is the overall picture of our our situation and the important things we need to be allowing time for. But and what happens when we can't change the outside situation and we are stressed and we know we're stressed? Are there ways that we can deal with this? And in this conversation, I put down just these 4 or 5 basic responses to stress that we can practice. And number one is to know that we're stressed. For my part, I know that stress will often surface as frustration, or other people react to stress differently. Sometimes some people withdraw, some people have feelings of hopelessness. For me, I can feel frustration, and that can come at any time of the day. It can be from hitting my part on a truck to where I can't find it. It can be from any number of things. So one thing we can do is first we notice and we can say, this is stress. That immediately takes us away from being the stress. We don't want to be the stress. We want to notice the stress. And then we can pause. But first we have to notice we're stressed. So we can just say the term, we are stressed. We feel stress. This is stress. This is presenting itself as stress. And then pause. And that little pause, we take a few breaths or you take a break, the stressor and how you react. So we can soften to that. We can lean into the stress. So that means we can feel, so stress has physiological symptoms. There's a release of certain types of chemicals in our body. And there's a lot of times there's kind of a feeling of contraction or lashing reactions to stress. And we can actually feel those in our body. So if we can just get enough space for just a few seconds to feel, how does this feel? Last summer, we lost a couple of people midsummer. Here was the pandemic going in the middle of the season. And so Mike and I found ourselves very late on a Friday night, having to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, lots and lots of bouquets for the next morning's market that had to be ready to leave by 3:45 in the morning. And it was stressful. And I know that all of you have these experiences of circumstance. But what I have found is that by recognizing that I'm feeling stress, and then I have this lean in. I'm training myself to lean in to, maybe I'm cold, maybe I need to put on some more clothes, maybe I just need a bite to eat. Maybe I need to slow down instead of rushing it, because it's just going to take how long it takes. So these are different ways for me to learn how to react to the stress I'm feeling. So what we want to avoid is creating a boombox around the stress. We want to just deal with what's actually there, see what's actually happening, and not create a huge storyline around it. This is really good experience to learn how to deal with stress, because some stresses are super serious, like recurring cancer, the death of loved ones. These are stresses that all of us will face in some respect, in some way. And when we get to the point where we can learn that stress is a normal part of life, and that we can learn how to deal with stress, and it will make us more resilient. When you talk to people who are refugees from other countries, it is amazing the type of stresses that they have been under in their lives, and yet they came out stronger because of it, because of those stresses. We don't have to fix it. We can feel our emotions around it. We don't have to fix the fact that we're feeling funky, but we do have to recognize we're feeling funky. We should have some compassion toward our stress. if you can say to yourself, may I feel peace. And remembering that other people are also stressed all the time can help you understand that you're not alone, that we are part of communities, and most people, all you have to do to get out of yourself is to think about somebody else who is having like 10 times more happening in their life than you are right now, to kind of get you out of feeling sorry for yourself. So stress is universal, and we can, we can choose to care about other people. We can choose to care about ourselves. We can choose to cultivate a different response to stress, because it's going to be there, but we can learn to deal with it in a different way. So I think that's it. Ashley, maybe we can have some conversation.